with teenagers, we know that they go through different stages in sleep, and we want to maximize the stages where they are actually recovering, because we have two modes. We have the sympathetic mode where we're in what we call fight or flight, when we're running around and our whole system dedicates itself to running away from the tiger. And then, after we're done with that, then we have to go back into parasympathetic mode, which is rest and repair. So if we sleep well, we're going to be in rest and repair. If we are having stressful sleep, even if we're not waking up, we might be in fight or flight, and that's not going to be conducive to overall health in the long run. For children, it's very important, for adults too.
For children, it's incredibly important because you don't produce growth hormone while you're in fight or flight mode. Fight or flight mode is a whole series of gigantic changes in the physiology of your entire body. You send much more energy to your thigh muscles so you can run. You take that energy away from growing or memory or all sorts of other things that can wait. If the tiger's going to eat you, you want to get those thigh muscles working so later on you can grow. But if the sleep apnea puts you into flight or fight and you stay there, it's going to interfere with your growth. It's going to interfere with almost everything in your body. There's a huge literature now which tells you how incredibly important stress is and how these two modes, the sympathetic flight or fight and the parasympathetic, which is sort of the rest and grow mode, are entirely different, and you don't want to stay in either one of them too long.
Just use your common sense and think about what is the first thing that you notice if you get scared and you have to run away from the tiger or from a car that, somebody fell asleep at the wheel and is coming towards you. What's the first thing that happens? Your mouth dries up. Your saliva goes away. Your mouth gets dry. I am a dentist. I put my hat on of layperson for common sense, but then I'm a dentist too. And I know that saliva has so many important functions, but they are all functions of rest and repair. So if a kid has his mouth open and the mouth is dry, then they're going to be completely or partially in that fight or flight mode. So having saliva, a healthy flow of saliva in our mouth and having a correct swallow will influence everything in our life. And that's a very new thing. It's a very new thing for parents to think about, the fact that we gotta make sure that the mouth is closed, that we have the correct amount of saliva, and we are triggering the hormones that will help our kids grow, especially when they're sleeping, because we do grow when we're sleeping. We know that the growth hormones are secreted mostly after 11 at night, but that's when we go into deep sleep and we secrete the hormones that we need to grow. And one thing that I'd like to mention is growth. We don't mean getting taller. We mean growing and developing every cell in our body to its maximum potential.
Give me a break, Sandra. I have great-grandchildren. I love them deeply. Am I supposed to, when I visit, as I'm going to soon, when I visit them, slip in at night and take a needle and get their glucocorticoid level, and then take a swab and see how much saliva there is in their mouth, and so on? Or are there some other clues that a parent might have about what's actually going on, or whether the child is in the parasympathetic mode?
Well, absolutely, you should go into the room and see how they're sleeping. But what this crusade is all about, and our book JAWS is a nonprofit. Everything that we make from this book is going to go back into focusing our resources into this epidemic. But what we want to do is focus on prevention. Our medical system hasn't focused on prevention. We are maintaining conditions for long periods as opposed to really curing them. And prevention can only happen if you focus or you find the condition before it really starts showing the symptoms. So it's difficult to say our job is to do prevention because you really haven't seen the symptoms. But for prevention, you have to find the symptoms and be able to focus on them and change those habits that are causing problems. And you can go into your grandchild's or your children's room at night and see a few things, or you can watch them when they eat and observe a couple things, or see them smile, or see how their face is growing. And the things that I tell parents to look at basically is, number one, if there's an open mouth, because we need to be able to see our children at rest, either watching TV or just sitting on the sidelines in a soccer field or whatever. We need to see that their rest position has a closed mouth. When they smile, we don't want to see a lot of gum. If you see a lot of gum when the child is smiling, that's a sign that things are not going the right direction. And you can identify this in a 2-year-old. And you can start doing things in a 2-year-old. You shouldn't be waiting until the permanent teeth grow in to really start preventing. You can do it if you see that a baby has an open mouth, that a baby's snoring. That's not something that you should wait to deal with later. As soon as you see it, it's a red flag. The attention problems have already been confirmed. The research has shown that they are related to not resting properly. So if a kid has attention problems, if they wake up in the morning, a young child should be energetic. I'm not talking about teenagers because they go through different stages, but a young child should wake up refreshed, energetic, ready to go. They should be able to have energy for the day without having to be tired. Tiredness in a child is not good. We can see darkness under the eyes. Darkness under the eyes is also a big sign that the jaw is falling down, that things are not growing properly, the venous return is not happening. So we're having blood being stuck in this area, and that's what their dark areas under. Or if we see too much of the white, of the eye, then we know the jaws are falling down. And jaws falling down and growing back is going to cause a vicious circle of more difficulty breathing, less rest and recover at night or during the day. So these are the 3 or 4 or 5 things that a parent or any adult that's looking at children should look at, and if there's a problem, bring it up to their caretaker. A lot of parents have heard their dentist say, okay, the teeth are not coming great, there's not a lot of room, but when they all come in, we'll go to the orthodontist, we'll have them straightened. And that's not ideal. We know that when parents take their kids to have their teeth fixed, they get their braces, they get nice, the kids go off to college, and in a year or two with not wearing retainers, the teeth are crowded again. Why? Because we only looked at a symptom. We didn't look at the underlying reason. And the underlying reason for the problem is really what we've talked about before, the resting mode not being ideal. So we have a lot of recommendations that we can make for parents or for anybody that has influence with children of things that we can do to change that environment. And this is a wonderful time because anybody that has a 2-year-old that's listening to us right now or that goes out and buys our book is going to have so much information. In our time, knowledge is power. So you will have the power to really get your kids to be as healthy as possible.
I think some basic biology should always be in your mind. And that is, most people somehow think of the jaws as solid, the upper jaw just being the bottom of the skull, the lower jaw just supposedly fitting underneath there. Bones are extremely malleable. They are always changing, more so than other parts of your body. Bones are taking in nourishment, leaving things out. You've all heard about osteoporosis, which is a change that often takes place in bones in people who don't get enough exercise in their later years. People don't realize that the upper jaw is a separate bone from the skull and that it is movable. It moves slowly, but all bones are movable. After all, what the orthodontist does is moves teeth through bone. The bone is disintegrating in front of the tooth and rebuilding behind it. But if there's not enough room, wherever the orthodontist moves the tooth, they've got to put in a retainer to hold it there. Otherwise, it'll start wandering again, which is the whole reason for having retainers. So think of bones as something that can be changed, and think of the task of prevention is making sure the changing bone goes on the right course to give you a nice large jaw. That's the basic problem. The problem is for crooked teeth is a matter of getting a jaw large enough for the teeth to go into naturally and not be crooked. And if you make a thing too small and you're trying to put dowels into it, they're going to be naturally crooked. So don't think it's hopeless to deal with your child's jaw early on. What you want to do is be sure that the child's jaw develops properly and naturally, which involves a lot of growth and change quite naturally.